Rome stands out from other cities in the world. The Italian capital is a gigantic museum, a solemn hall where one should walk slowly, admiring the perfect beauty. Everyone who has ever visited the Eternal City will forever cherish in their memories the richest cultural heritage with magnificent landmarks of history and architecture. Rome preserves 60% of the world's cultural heritage. Indeed, hardly among the world capitals will there be one that can compare to Rome, except perhaps Athens. Those who attempted to compare the ancient world centers found themselves thinking about the unquestionable uniqueness of both cities. However, one but, however you twist it, will still not be in favor of Hellas. Not all roads lead to Greek Athens. They lead only to Rome. The capital of Italy, the cradle of European civilization, is approaching the celebration of 3,000 years since its foundation. That's how long it has been since, according to legend, the twin brothers Romulus and Remus, nursed by a she-wolf, decided to lay the first stone of the glorious city. Rome managed to become the greatest state capital of European and world history. The ancient civilization, ancient Rome, emerged from a small agricultural community, and over time, grew into a powerful empire that dominated the entire Mediterranean. Therefore, it is always interesting to learn about the Roman path from a small group of united people to the most influential dominator of the world, which later crumbled like a sandcastle. Historians still debate exploring socio-political hypotheses about the patterns of development and subsequent decline of the Roman Empire. Meanwhile, curious tourists pack their suitcases and, without wasting precious time, embark on a journey to the country that preserves Rome for them, a city that for many is a lifelong dream to see. The desire to visit the Eternal City will perhaps never diminish. Its magnetism lies in millennia-old ruins, monuments of antiquity, and the Middle Ages. In immortal works of art from the Renaissance era, beautiful basilicas, fairy tale palaces, and magnificent squares with fountains. Walk through Rome wherever you please. Only then will you discover the mysterious soul of the Eternal City, seeing with your own eyes what Michelangelo and Caravaggio saw, Debussy, Ursin, and many others whose aesthetic tastes are beyond doubt. If you stroll through at least 3 Roman streets, you will instantly immerse yourself in the atmosphere of antiquity and undoubtedly feel like a noble Roman. Isn't it miraculous? So, we invite you to continue the journey together. There's hardly another city in the world as adorned with fountains as Rome. Mythical creatures sculpted in stone, realistic and fantastical animals, both large and small, have embellished Rome since the late Middle Ages. It's nearly impossible to picture Rome without its water features. Fountains served not only as a source of drinking water, but also as unmatched embellishments to the city. In the Italian capital, you'll never go thirsty, as numerous fountains and columns can be found everywhere. Over the years, hundreds of these fountains were built, each associated with the names of eminent architects. The father of the most famous Roman fountains is considered to be the architect Lorenzo Bernini. His Barcaccia fountain, resembling a half-sunken boat, adorns the Spanish Steps. Piazza Navona boasts the Four Rivers Fountain, while the renowned Triton adorns Piazza Barberini. The Trevi Fountain is Rome's gem. This grand sculptural masterpiece was crafted in the 18th century by Nicola Salvi. The architect added a decorative wall in the form of a Roman triumphal arch, complete with a powerful round niche, symbolizing the ocean reigning over the sea currents, to the facade of the existing Trevi Palace. At the heart of the fountain stands the figure of Neptune, atop a chariot, shaped like a giant shell and drawn by seahorses. As night descends in Rome, the Trevi Fountain is illuminated by built-in lanterns, creating an unforgettable sight. It's regarded as one of the world's most beautiful fountains and a symbol of refined luxury. Standing 26 meters tall and 20 meters wide, it's believed that the Trevi Fountain grants the most cherished wishes. To ensure your own dreams come true, if you're dreaming of a return visit to Rome, be sure to toss a coin into the fountain. It's unlikely you'll find a tourist who hasn't done so. And as a playful note, let's all do our part to keep the tradition going strong. Leaning over the fountain's basin, you can see countless coins from all over the world through the azure water. Truly, all roads lead to Rome. It's interesting to note that after the restoration, city authorities initially banned tourists from tossing coins into the fountain, but they didn't strictly enforce the ban, and soon the tradition was revived. It's said that throughout the day, tourists leave over 1,500 euros in the fountain. And during the weekly cleaning of the pool, an average of $11,000 is retrieved. The collected funds are not wasted, but are donated to charitable organizations. But that's not all the wonders of the Trevi Fountain. Roman locals mysteriously retell, if you bathe in it, you can remain forever young and beautiful. How can we forget the romantic scene from Federico Fellini's legendary film, La Dolce Vita? Actress Anita Ekberg bathes in the Trevi Fountain at night. Perhaps today's tourists, too, feel tempted to repeat her extravagant act. However, persistent Roman carabinieri don't sit idly by. For such misconduct, they impose a fine of 500 euros. Therefore, timid tourist beauties content themselves with a safer tradition, tossing coins into the fountain to return to the magical place in Rome. And to make this happen as soon as possible, they purchase a new tour to Rome.its, worth noting that the water in the fountain is drinkable, as it is in all other fountains in Rome. Also, finding delicious water to drink requires no extra effort. Numerous drinking fountains are located throughout the Italian capital and beyond. Therefore, residents and guests of Rome have the opportunity to enjoy quality and absolutely free water along the most popular tourist routes. Finding a water fountain, or as Italians call it, fontanella, is easy. You just have to be attentive as you stroll through the city streets. And to drink from the fontanella, you need to know a little secret. Press the lower hole in the pipe with your hand, Nasni, and the water will gush from the upper one, a technically simple and almost perfect solution from a hygiene standpoint. Drink up and cheers as we head to the heart of Rome to Piazza Barberini with its incomparable Triton fountain. Piazza Barberini is located right in the center of Rome, not far from the Sallustian Gardens. The landmark's name is associated with the Barberini dynasty, whose members put considerable effort into beautifying the city. Perhaps among all the results of their work, Piazza Barberini is the most impressive. During ancient times, part of Rome near the Quirinal Hill was designated for a religious structure, and nearby residents held grand celebrations. In the first half of the 16th century, a square named Piazza Grimani appeared on the map of Rome. All of its real estate was acquired by the wealthy Maffeo Barberini. 2 years after the purchase agreement, the esteemed Florentine family decided that a palace was urgently needed on the square. Maffeo Barberini was no ignoramus. He assembled a remarkable collection of books, befriended Galileo himself, and enjoyed remarkable respect among the citizens of Rome. Therefore, it's not surprising that the new name firmly stuck to the square in 1633. It was then that the palace, the result of talented architects' work, was fully revealed to the inhabitants of the Eternal City. Piazza Barberini became a place where the people of Rome went to see and be seen. It would be a mistake to think that Piazza Barberini was solely intended for celebrations and pleasant leisure. It has entered history as a place where the bodies of unidentified deceased citizens from all over Rome were laid. This gruesome tradition continued until the end of the 18th century. The newly built Barberini Palace required a completed architectural concept. The installation of two fountains, the Triton and the Bees, was meant to adorn the square and enhance the grandeur of the Barberini family. Both projects were designed by Lorenzo Bernini, the same person whose fame for the fountain in Piazza Navona was credited by his father. The Triton fountain impresses with its monumentality, yet the graceful Baroque sculptures are extremely plastic. What's the secret? It lies in travertine. Its ease of processing sets it apart. The curved tails of the four dolphins holding the fountain basin are executed very dynamically. It seems that in a moment, we'll hear the splash of their strikes against the water surface. And indeed we do. In the midst of the open wings is the statue of the sea triton. He holds a shell from which water flows merrily. This sound immediately draws attention to Piazza Barberini, just like the bee fountain. It emerged on the square 2 years after the Triton fountain. At the heart of the composition lies an open shell adorned with 3 bees, infusing the fountain with pristine water. The upper flap of the elegant shell bears the name of the patron, who spearheaded the creation of these installations in the square. As for the foundation of the bee fountain, the architect opted for rugged stones. Both the bees and the shell epitomize refined style, contrasting with the raw travertine. Credit is due to the architect. The bee fountain showcases a potent allegory, reminding each of us not to forget the value of hard work and aiding others. Piazza Barberini is always bustling with tourists. They linger over each fragment of the fountain compositions, seeking answers to questions posed by stone and water 5 centuries ago. Then, as a keepsake, they toss a coin into the water and, lost in reverie, head to a nearby cap. There, they can unwind and catch their breath from the sights and beauty they've encountered. Tourist guides often suggest starting Roman adventures from Capitoline Square. Naturally, every tourist aims to visit it because almost 3,000 years ago, it was here that the first stones of the Eternal City were laid. But let's not rush up the grand staircase to the famous hill. It's better to leisurely wander through the surrounding ancient ruins. It's a unique opportunity to experience Imperial Rome firsthand. And only then is it worth ascending to the Capitoline Square, which is considered unique for its beauty and harmony. The current architectural complex of the Capitoline Square, preserved to this day, is the result of the painstaking work of the great master of the Italian Renaissance, Michelangelo Buonarroti. In 1536, only he was entrusted with a thorough reconstruction of the ancient architectural ensembles. The great master exceeded expectations. The gentle marble staircase at the foot is adorned with 2 fountain-shaped Egyptian lions. The balustrade of the Capitoline Hill is decorated with exquisite statues of heroes from Roman mythology. Among them stands the majestic statue of Emperor Marcus Aurelius on horseback. It's one of the 6 sculptures in the world that stands only on 2 points of support, the hind hooves of the horse. The Emperor Rider was a favorite during his reign. Perhaps even after. Who would honor the memory of a scoundrel? No one. Marcus Aurelius considered killing a slave a crime, and became the first emperor to require nobles to be judged for the inhuman treatment of their subjects. Thus, Roman law was born. Let's note straight away, in the center of the square stands a copy of the sculpture. The bronze original is kept nearby, in the Capitoline Museum. Imagine, the entire statue of Marcus Aurelius was once covered in gold, traces of which are still visible on some fragments to this day. Without any irony, it must be said that the sculpture is now on a well-deserved rest. Erected in ancient Rome, the statue remained under the open sky for 18 centuries. Rain, hail, and thousands of years of exposure to air oxidation fell upon it. To prevent further deterioration, it was decided to hide the sculpture from the destructive atmospheric effects. After all, the monument to Marcus Aurelius is the only equestrian statue of a philosopher and Roman emperor that has survived to this day. The most notable structure on the Capitoline Hill is the Senate Palace. Describing its historical and architectural value, or rather its priceless nature, is very difficult. The Senate Palace is as old as Rome itself. As part of the restoration, Michelangelo was tasked with reviving the creation of the ancient architect Cornelius. According to the architect's plan, the construction of the Senate Palace was supposed to be dominant and most majestic. Did Michelangelo manage to embody this? Probably yes. You can easily verify this by visiting the Capitoline Hill. As is known, purple clothing in Rome was a symbol of social status. Such an image privilege was granted only to the emperor and senators. For the first meeting in the restored building, all of the officials sewed new red robes. The excitement was insane. Some subjects even dressed in red. They were immediately arrested and sentenced to death in Rome of the 15th century. Such audacity was equated with serious crimes. Since 1871, the mayor's residence has been located in the Senate Palace, so unfortunately, most of the premises are closed to tourists. You can visit the lapidary and exhibition of samples of ancient writing executed on stone slabs, including gravestones. Downstairs, in the old part of Capitoline Hill, you can see the archive, the tabularium. Admirers of antiquity and museum tranquility have the opportunity to visit the Capitoline Museums. They are located in the premises of two palaces, the Nuovo Palace and the Conservator's Palace. The buildings were reconstructed according to a single project by Michelangelo, so they are absolutely identical. The Capitoline Museums are the careful custodians of the world's first collection of works of art to which public access was granted. This happened in 1734. It is here that famous works of ancient sculptors are exhibited: the Capitoline Wolf, the Dying Gaul, the Boy with a Thorn, and many others. In addition, you can admire Rome's pride world masterpieces of painting, created by the best Italian masters Caravaggio, Rubens, Titian, Van Dyck, Velázquez, and Tintoretto. On the Capitoline Hill, there's a particular building distinguished by its modest architectural design. Tourist guides unanimously list it as a must-visit, albeit with a weak call in small font. It's the Mamertine Prison. Built in the 7th century, it was meant for the temporary detention of suspects and defendants. Roman law didn't provide for imprisonment as punishment. The prison was connected by an underground channel to the Roman sewer system, where, according to legend, the bodies of deceased prisoners were dumped. Among the well-known inmates of the Mamertine prison were the Numidian king Jugurtha, the Celtic chieftain Vercingetorix captured by Julius Caesar during the Gallic Wars, as well as Lentulus, one of the main conspirators in the so-called Catiline conspiracy, and the disgraced commander of the Praetorian Guard, Lucius. Behind bars were also those suffering for their faith and freedom of thought. In any case, those who stole an apple in the market square were not locked up here. But that's a completely different story. The intrigue doesn't end there. Michelangelo, who had the honor of restoring buildings throughout much of the Capitoline Hill, intended to carry out a powerful renovation of the Mamertine prison. However, he did not have the chance. He passed away just 2 weeks before his 89th birthday. And his students, associates, and followers did not see their lofty purpose of turning the prison into a masterpiece. They were involved in tasks of greater aesthetic significance. Now, from the Capitoline Hill, there unfolds a striking panorama of the ruins of the imperial forums erected by Julius Caesar and his successors, and vice versa. Amidst the semi-ruined grandeur stands the preserved and beautiful Capitoline Hill, a witness to the history of the Eternal City. Travelers from all around the world, upon arriving in Rome, strive to see the most beautiful Piazza del Popolo, the People's Square, as soon as possible. Impressions of the architectural splendor of the buildings, the stunning gardens on the Pincian Hill, and the cascading water fountains are unforgettable. There is another peculiar feature of this square. You can't shake the feeling that the sounds of Roman legionaries' footsteps are about to echo along the cobblestones of the Flaminian Way, ready to achieve yet another victory. The entire People's Square, with its historical and architectural ornamentation, is like a timekeeper that holds all the secrets of Rome for its guests. According to onomastics, the modern name of the square has nothing to do with the people. It is said to have been named after the poplar grove near Emperor Nero's tomb. The Latin words for poplar and people sound the same. Another version suggests that this is where people went with their hats to collect communal funds for their next big idea. Thus, it became the People's Square. During antiquity and the early Middle Ages, public executions of hardened criminals took place in this square. And when there was cause for celebration, it heard musicians and the solemn songs of revelers. The Flaminian Way, one of Rome's 3 main streets, began here: Babuino, Corso, and Ripetta. Walking down Babuino Street leads easily to the famous Spanish Steps. Ripetta Street will take you to the Mausoleum of Augustus, while Corso connects Rome to the Via Flaminia. In other words, life on the square was vibrant, and it remains so today. The square can accommodate up to 65,000 people and is completely closed to any form of transportation. It would be a huge mistake not to mention that in the evening, thanks to its unique lighting, it looks simply fantastic. Before, there were only gates in the fortress wall and just one fountain, from which Romans drew water for their daily needs and watered their horses. Centuries later, the People's Square was adorned with architectural masterpieces. Now, this famous Roman square with its democratic name astonishes passersby with its sheer beauty. Its central part is adorned with one of Rome's tallest architectural structures, the Flaminian obelisk from ancient times. It appeared here as a trophy, brought from Egypt in the 10th year before Common Era. In Egypt, it stood near the main temple of Ra. The 24-meter obelisk brought to Rome was located in the Roman Circus. Time relentlessly took its toll. The obelisk almost crumbled into pieces. The renowned architect Domenico Fontana carefully collected the fragments, restored them, and installed them in the square. The Flaminian obelisk is surrounded by 4 marble lions in the Egyptian style, resting on the corners of a short staircase leading to the platform where the monument stands. By the way, the marble lion sculptures are exact copies of the sculptural images on the Capitoline Hill. This is a unique landmark of history and architecture. The age of this stone giant is almost 3,500 years. An ancient inscription praising Pharaoh Ramses is visible on it. An original staircase named Napoleon's leads to the obelisk and fountains, often used by weary tourists for a brief rest and photo sessions. You can enter Piazza del Popolo through its namesake gates. Once they were part of the Grand Aurelian Walls. Erected between 271 and 275, before the Common Era by Emperor Aurelian, these massive city walls encircled all 7 hills of Rome. Built in just 5 years, the sturdy stone defenses still impress today. Stretching 19 kilometers in total length and with an initial height of 8 meters, these walls covered almost 14 square kilometers of defensive area. Their thickness reached 3.5 meters, constructed with brick and topped with concrete. However, by the 4th century CE, the Aurelian walls required reconstruction and additional fortifications. Doubling in height, they gained 383 watchtowers, 7,020 battlements, 18 main gates, and 2,066 external windows, which could quickly transform into arrow slits during times of peril. Notably, one of the 18 gates led directly to Piazza del Popolo. This formidable construction project undoubtedly served as a clear message to all adversaries of the Roman Empire. While the actual effectiveness of the walls remains debatable, given the relatively small number of garrison legionnaires, only 25,000, the strategic significance cannot be ignored. We, like ordinary tourists, reserve the right to emphasize one aspect: the Aurelian walls stand as a historical landmark, surviving to this day, not only for their strength, but also to allow millions of travelers to grasp the grandeur of ancient Rome. And modern Rome beckons the world to pass through one of the gates of the Great Aurelian Walls and immerse itself in its unparalleled beauty. Without Piazza del Popolo at its heart, this beauty would appear incomplete. Skillful use of the terrain, original cobblestones, fountains, and exquisite sculptures create a unique spatial harmony, eloquently highlighting the singular nature of Rome. As is widely known, theater as an art form originated in Greece. However, it's nearly inconceivable to imagine that Rome remained oblivious to this groundbreaking discovery. The art form, whose authenticity and uniqueness require no validation, became an integral part of Roman life from ancient times right up to the present day. Undoubtedly, ancient Roman drama borrowed extensively from Greek theater, but also added its own distinct flavor. The stage of the Roman theater was twice the size, with seating arranged in a semicircle. Alongside tragedies and comedies, the Roman theater showcased short, moralistic farces and pantomimes. While in Greece, playwrights held esteemed status, in Rome, the task of crafting a play often fell to talented slaves. This was because theatrical performances in Rome were considered commonplace entertainment, created for profit, much like any other craft. To delve deeper into this topic, let's take a closer look at the Roman theater. Located not far from Piazza Venezia, in the historic heart of Rome, stands one of Italy's most remarkable landmarks, the Theater of Marcellus. It served as a prominent precursor to the Colosseum and was among the largest structures in ancient Rome. During the Empire, the construction of buildings for various spectacles was in full swing. It was seen as the most effective means of garnering favor among the populace. The visionary behind this construction was Julius Caesar. He aimed to erect an artistic venue that would surpass the theater built by his adversary, Pompey, in scale. The site for the theater was handpicked by the emperor himself. Although construction began in 44 years before the Common Era, it remained unfinished due to the untimely demise of the great emperor. His successor, Octavian Augustus, resolved to see Caesar's vision through, albeit on a grander scale and with personal motivations. The theater's construction paid homage to the memory of a relative and potential heir, Marcus Marcellus, who passed away prematurely. Thus, the name of Rome's first theater required no further deliberation. The amphitheater astounded contemporaries with its sheer size, standing 30 meters tall and boasting a diameter of 130 meters. Its stage stretched a considerable 90 meters, supported by 41 arches and 42 half columns. The auditorium accommodated 14,000 spectators. Beyond its dimensions, the theater's stylistic design was equally impressive. The first tier featured Doric-style columns that tapered towards the top, while the second tier showcased Ionic columns with ornate bases. The third tier was adorned with a Corinthian colonnade, adding a unique architectural touch. Emperor Augustus decreed that the theater's interior should surpass all previous constructions in magnificence. Adorned with marble statues and 36 large bronze vases strategically placed to enhance sound, the theater's interior boasted 3 tiers of marble staircases segmented to accommodate the elite, women, and common folk, along with a separate section for slaves. The emperor's box was situated apart from the audience seating, while opposite the seating rows, space was allocated for props and actor preparation before taking the stage. The performers would enter the so-called orchestra, a circular platform in front of or above the stage, where the chorus would accompany all the dramatic action. Notably, to shield spectators from the sun, a canvas awning, akin to that used in the Colosseum, could be unfurled over the entire amphitheater. Miraculously preserved architectural plans and remnants of the theater indicate that the stage, with all its superstructures, faced the Tiber River. The semicircular amphitheater was oriented towards the city. Within the arches of the amphitheater were numerous storehouses and stalls. There, wine was freely traded, and it's safe to assume that spectators could readily enjoy a glass of fine wine before the spectacle. The Roman theater of Marcellus is a magnificent theatrical saga spanning 2,000 years. However, as philosophers say, nothing in the world is eternal. In the 4th century AD, applause ceased within its walls forever. The theater ceased to serve its purpose. As had happened hundreds of times before, the residents of Rome gradually dismantled the grand structure for other construction needs, repairing bridges, roads, and their own homes. Priceless finishing materials were simply looted or found their way into private collections. The theater of Marcellus became a semi-ruined void. During periods of civil unrest and wars, what was once an artistic haven often became a fortress. Later, in the 13th century, the affluent Savelli family transformed it into a palace. 300 years later, it became the site for constructing the residence of the Orsini family. They remained the owners of the former theater until the 1920s. Space beneath its majestic arches was leased for housing, various shops, and artisan workshops. In 1926, the Italian government finally felt a pang of conscience regarding historical memory. It kindly asked everyone to vacate the arches and leave. Thus began the 6-year restoration of the theater. The Theater of Marcellus is the only theater to have survived from ancient Rome, built before our era. Today, one can observe the well-preserved 16 arches of the first tier, where thematic concerts and celebrations occasionally take place. Unfortunately, fragments of the second and third tiers are obscured by residential floors. Tourists often express dismay at this. The combination of everyday banality and high architectural style raises separate concerns and prompts reflection. But what can be done? The millennia-old history of Rome sometimes leaves a melancholic imprint of inexorable time on the city. Having become acquainted with Rome's most ancient theatrical landmark, it's worth directing attention to another one. Typically, tourists, exhausted after excursions to the Colosseum, Roman Forum, and numerous squares, sometimes lack the energy to notice it. This is the Circus Maximus. Forget about acrobats and merry clowns, because we're talking about the largest hippodrome of ancient Rome. Located on the left bank of the Tiber River between the Palatine and Aventine Hills, practically in the very center of modern Rome. The name Circo Massimo Circus Maximus comes from the Latin language, the ancestor of Italian. One of the lexical meanings of the word circus is an arena or a place for equestrian competitions. For centuries, chariot races took place in the valley between the Roman hills. Historians argue that it could have been a seasonal celebration in honor of the mythical Neptune, the god of horses. The first competitions were organized in the 5th century before Christ during the reign of King Tarquin. Chariots, drawn by a team of 4 horses, were called quadrigas. The charioteers raced madly through the valley, turned back, and tried to reach the finish line faster than the wind. In the 2nd century before Christ, the rules changed due to the construction of the Roman aqueduct. It was laid under the valley, digging a tunnel almost 5 meters high and 2.5 meters wide. A bank was formed along the hippodrome, which was not leveled, and the chariots were sent around in a circle. Thus, the second meaning of the Latin word circus circle was fully justified, and later the Italian word circo, circus appeared. It should be said that the circus was indeed massimo very large. Its width was 150 meters, and its length was over 600. At first, spectators, eager to watch the horse races, sat directly on the slopes of the hills. Gradually, the first structures appeared: benches for the most respected and wealthy citizens, wooden starting posts, and stables for horses. During its heyday, which occurred during the rule of the first emperors, the Circus Maximus was one of the greatest structures in Rome. The active practitioner, Julius Caesar in the 1st century before Christ rebuilt, expanded, and lengthened it and dug canals around it. Now the Valley Stadium could simultaneously accommodate 12 quadrigas. There was a need to build a fence, wooden stands for patricians, and tiers for the general public. Don't get the impression that the circus was just okay. Don't rush to conclusions. There were a whopping 150,000 seats, and later their number doubled. No fewer fans watched the competition standing. At one end of the arena were 3 towers. The main one had gates for entry, and the others had horse stables attached to them in a semicircle, with an original name for our ears cursor. Through the gates opposite, the happy victors left the circus. Along the arena, a narrow platform was arranged, in the middle of which stood 2 ancient Egyptian obelisks. Interestingly, both have survived. One of them now adorns the Piazza del Popolo in Rome. We mentioned this, remember? And the second obelisk is installed in front of the Lateran Palace. On both sides of the platform, columns in the form of cones crowned it. They were also called metae. Chariot races began from them to finish on the opposite side after 7 laps. Of course, ensuring fair results meant carefully tallying the laps. For this task, a timekeeper was appointed who vigorously struck a metal pipe, but it was useless. No one could hear him over the buzzing arenas, akin to bees in a hive. So, they had to visualize the race progress. A responsible accountant threw stone balls into a large box. Later on, the great circus was adorned in every possible way. After all, a public venue should look appealing. They constructed small dolphin-shaped fountain seahorses, representing Neptune, the patron of the arenas and public spaces. Beauty and utility were always close at hand in Rome. After Caesar, the dazzling circus continued to attract the attention of ancient Rome's residents for another 500 years. It seemed that its decline in popularity and glory was still a long way off. Subsequent Roman emperors added practical aesthetics to the circus structure. For instance, and since our fire-ravaged Roman 31st year before the Common Era, Emperor Augustus completely rebuilt the circus, giving it its final functional form. Stone grandstands in the form of stairs became its foundation. Many shops and taverns sprang up the immortal slogan "Bread," and circuses was coined right there. The emperor lacked the effort for more ambitious projects. The two upper tiers remained wooden, but the decoration of the great circus persisted, with the addition of expensive decor. The stalls for horses, known as carcers, were made of marble, and the medi were embellished with gold. The final races were held in 549 year of Common Era. After that, the era of the great circus's demise began. Romans dismantled its stone to build something new, and the rest was buried under earth and time. Archaeologists excavating in the 19th century discovered the lower tiers of the circus, buried 6 meters deep. Since then, any targeted construction on the former Hippodrome's territory has been strictly prohibited. Today in Rome, the site of the Great Circus is occupied by a wide, oval-shaped lawn. The surviving ruins of the racetracks, marble carcers, and stone stands impress modern visitors with their size. Now it's a recreational area, often used for celebrations, military parades, themed concerts, and Rome's birthday festivities. It's worth a visit. Take a tourist moment for special impressions that you'll never regret. After all, it was here that the strongest once battled, and now you know their story too. The cafes of Rome are truly unique places. Never refer to them merely as spots to quickly grab a cup of coffee. These cozy and welcoming establishments invite you not only to enjoy a cup of coffee, but also to relax with friends, engage in discussions with business partners, or simply spend some time alone with your thoughts. Since the 17th century, when the first cafe opened in Venice, similar establishments began to pop up across Italy, including Rome. Its vibrant and bustling neighborhoods were particularly well suited for setting up cafes. They quickly became popular venues for meetings and discussions, where patriotic ideas and reform proposals were often born. In Rome's cafes, renowned artists would sit on soft couches, sketching away while sipping their coffee, with their works adorning the walls. The cozy cafes of Rome attracted the likes of Byron, Stendhal, Schopenhauer, and Wagner, among others. Notably, near the Spanish Steps in Rome, on the famous Condotti Street, you'll find Cafe Greco. In the late 18th century, the Venetian reveler and adventurer Giacomo Casanova was a frequent patron. Another fascinating tidbit: at a regular table in one Roman cafe, Nikolai Gogol penned pages of his novel Dead Souls. The writer always opted for the cheapest but strongest black coffee. Unsurprisingly, the regulars at Rome's cafes included lawyers, politicians, diplomats, and numerous other esteemed individuals, whom we now refer to as Veeps. Today, hundreds of historical cafes across Italy remain open to visitors. Make it a point to visit at least one of them at your earliest convenience. It'll be an elegant experience, I assure you. Consider Caffè della Pace near Piazza Navona or San Crispino near the Trevi Fountain. For a pleasant atmosphere and delicious coffee, head to Caffè Giolitti near the Pantheon. The savvy cafe owners of yesteryears, attuned to demand, expanded their menus to include pastries, pizza, ice cream, liqueurs, wines, and even pasta, macaroni. This tradition proved to be a hit, attracting visitors not just for coffee, but also for a satisfying meal. Modern Romans are passionate coffee enthusiasts, often enjoying this aromatic beverage 4-7 times a day. A cup of cappuccino with a croissant is a staple breakfast, while lunchtime often sees locals abandoning their tasks to head out for coffee, once again meaning for lunch. With your indulgence, and in a spirit of friendship, let me share a little coffee secret with you. There's a cafe in Rome that not every Italian can enter. And it's not because of a lack of means or time. It's Felice Testacchio on Maestro Giorgio Street. Established in 1936, the cafe was personally overseen by its founder, Don Felice, who would greet each guest and, if need be, decide whether they were welcome, regardless of available tables. While the current staff welcomes all visitors warmly, they still uphold this tradition. Pay them a visit and charm the current owner with your smile, friendliness, good manners, and sincere appreciation for their hospitality. Once you've sampled their coffee and signature pasta, you'll realize it was all worth it. Our journey through Rome is coming to an end. What would we like to say in conclusion? Perhaps there are no such words. Because Italy is not just a country, it's a feeling. There are 100 reasons to love it, and the first of them is undoubtedly the incomparable Rome. Everything in our lives is fleeting, yet it stands immovably for thousands of years, observing our wanderings. And then it chooses the right moment to convincingly tell each one of us, whatever you may do, Rome will always be Rome.